had the ladies stand and say to me, so when the man comes, will he lift the oven in? And I was like, no, it won't be a man. We're a full team of female electricians. So will a man not come and help you lift the oven? I was like, no. And her daughter had booked the quote in, and I could see her just like dying. She was like, oh no.
Men have historically worked in the trades more often than women, but times are changing. In the UK, around 33,000 women are working as tradespeople, but that still only equates to 1% of the industry and represents a 0.7% increase during the last decade. It's not enough. So today I'm joined by Cathy Cockin, who started her own company, Little Miss Electrical, at the end of 2017. She's built a really successful business with a female-only team of 9 employees. We're also joined by Tommy to share his experience in the plumbing and heating sector. In this episode, we discuss how to become a successful tradeswoman. Plus, we confront some of the darker sides of the trade industry and find out what the industry needs to improve to attract more women. The podcast is sponsored by Payaka, software that helps you sell more, organise your team and save hours of time. Let's get into it. Okay, Cathy, what do you think puts off women getting into the trade industries?
Okay, so I think what puts women off going into the industry is just confidence, really. So I'm quite a confident person, so I was quite lucky that didn't affect me wanting to become an electrician. It didn't really faze me that there weren't a lot of female electricians. And with my partner being a plasterer, I just got involved with the same jobs he did, so I didn't really see it as something I couldn't do. But I think generally having the confidence to say that they want to do a job what's predominantly male, especially younger women that are at sort of apprenticeship level, that I think just speaking up, especially like teenage girls speaking up and saying they want to do something that's not like hair and beauty or typically a girl's job, I think it definitely affects it.
And would you say that sexism exists in the trade industry? Is it a big problem now? Like, has it got worse?
I think generally, there's just like a bit of a mixed bag, really. Like we get like the sort of like burly builders that we'd think would be a bit more like, oh, you don't know what you're doing, are really positive and say it's really refreshing. But then like some of the people who I would have thought would have been a bit more like tolerant of it have been a bit more like, a bit more brash about it and a bit more like, oh, you don't know what you're doing. That's what you get most. People just think that you can't possibly know. My mum's partner's one of them people. He's very like children should be seen and not heard. Women should be in the kitchen. And that really surprises me because he's so intelligent. You would think.
How old is he, if you don't mind me asking?
He's 80. Something. My mum's quite old. She's 70 this year. Yeah, so I think maybe it's a generation thing as well.
So do you think therefore it's getting better then?
Yeah, definitely. I think younger people are more positive about it. I think like we're definitely moving into a time where people are a lot more accepting of stuff like that. But it just depends, really. I think it depends how people have been brought up, sort of what experiences they've had, whether they've had a positive experience. Quite a lot of people, I think, are pleasantly surprised, so that I think changes their experience going forward and their attitudes. But I think there's a lot of different reasons as to why different people obviously think what they do, but I think definitely generation comes into it.
I'll agree with that because my wife runs a business. She runs a boiler installation business, and although I'm no longer really involved in that business, I hear what she's saying. And the reason why I ask the question how old is because often when she comes off the phone and she's angry, it's because some older gentleman has spoke to her in a way that is unacceptable.
Yeah.
Things like could you get the engineer on the phone?
Yeah. I've had that before with tenants where they've not realised that where the electrician's ringing and they've thought we're the lady in the estate agent's office, because we've got an estate agent who all the people in the office are actually women apart from the owner. So when we ring to book them in, if they don't know it's a female electrician coming, they just presume that when it was me, we used to do all our bookings as well. They just presumed that I was the lady from the estate agents, not the electrician. And they would be like, oh, when's the electrician coming or something like that.
I'm speaking to you.
Yeah, or they presume, they say, when the electrician comes, can you tell him? And I'm like, well, I've had the ladies stand and say to me when I've been doing a quote like over and over, an older lady, so when the man comes, will he lift the oven in? And I was like, no, it won't be a man. We're a full team of female electricians. She's like, so will a man not come and help you lift the oven? It's like, no, and her daughter had booked the quoting, and I could see her just like dying. She was like, oh no. And I had like an older gentleman as well who really posed as like a little frail old man who seemed so sweet, actually asked me for my qualification certificate.
Oh wow.
I know.
Yeah.
That's the first and only time I've ever been asked for that. When it's not been like an insurance type question, you know, where the receptionist or administrator at a company need it for their files, but an actual person just basically questioning your credibility.
I think it was really interesting what you were saying there as well about like people's experiences and whatnot, because we had Sam from the Electricians podcast on one of our previous episodes, and he was giving us like his 2 cents on this, and like he was very open and honest about it. He used to be one of those people who was just like, who thought that like women shouldn't be on site, and then he was talking through like what changed his opinion to like having a daughter and like being responsible for this person who he believed there shouldn't be anything stopping her from doing what she wanted to do. So yeah, I think that's a really interesting point, I think.
Yeah, I think definitely like just generally when men do have daughters, I think they do change, and I think men realise how women can be spoken to when they've got a daughter themselves, what they might, just because they've then got that experience of that. And you know, you can't, if you're not a woman and you've not been spoken to in a certain way, you're not going to know. Like I always say, you don't know until you learn about everything. Like in electrics, people, if somebody who's not got experience in something comes to work for us, and I don't have sort of the opinion that you should know if someone's never taught you. And I think that's just the same with that sort of principle. If you've never been spoke to like that, you're not going to know that that's happening. And you might think, I think it's easy to think people are exaggerating or just sort of using that as an excuse to get some sympathy, but when you actually experience it yourself, then you can see that, you know, that does happen sometimes. Not everybody's like that, you know, so.
But yeah, I think it quite often though, like it can be like right in front of your face, and if someone's not pointing out that this is happening, like you don't notice, and it's because it's not affecting you directly. Yeah,
like if it's your daughter that it's happening to, then obviously you've got a lot more personal interest in that, haven't you, to pick up on it. Whereas if it was just somebody else that you didn't have any relation to or didn't know, you might side with the other person more because you've not got a personal interest in that, I suppose.
I mean, how do you find people react when you like point out like the silly mistake that they've made, or like do you generally find that's well received? Or
in terms of if like staff training,
well, if someone has assumed that you're not the electrician or whatever, like
they're quite usually like a bit, I think they feel a bit like silly, because I think it would depend on who it was. If it's someone like Mum's partner who's quite set in his ways and stubborn, he'll say, like, for example, I've gone out to their house when they've had an electrical problem, and he's like, he's a doctor, so he's highly qualified in, and I think it is electrical engineering or mechanical and electrical engineering. So he's not been able to sort out like a socket stripping issue, which is quite a simple thing in terms of his level of education, but he couldn't do it. And so he'd just carry on with it's like whatever excuse he's giving as to why a woman couldn't sort it out. And whereas I think like if it's a tenant in a house and they're like, oh, all right, oh, sorry, you know, and they feel a bit more foolish rather than carrying on with a stubborn sort of attitude.
Yeah, and I guess like hopefully like then next time they don't make that mistake because that's in their head.
Yeah, I mean, I did it the other day. Somebody, it was a female decorator on a job, rang, and I thought it was one of the customers because they had similar names, and she was saying there was some issue with some of the sockets that she was decorating around, or she was plastering and decorating around them. And when I spoke to her, I presumed she was the customer, and I thought, God, I can't believe I've just done that. Like I should know better than anyone. And I started talking to her with the assumption that she was the customer, and I said, oh, if you just speak to the decorator or plasterer and tell them, like, there's not an issue with them, I've seen the pictures. And she was like, I'm the plasterer, and I didn't realise they had a female plasterer, so I just assumed that she was the customer. And I think the names were like Siobhan and something else, like a bit unusual with an S, so I'd kind of skimmed the message and just presumed that was the customer, and I felt awful after, and I think it did put us off on the wrong foot a bit as well. And I thought to myself, like, God, that's what people do to me, and I should know better. But you know, it is sort of an easy mistake to make anyway, because you know, it is quite uncommon to get a female trades, and because we know a lot of other female trades, like, you know, quite often we know the female trade if there is one, because we're quite a good, like, it's a good community. Once you sort of get in touch with the female trades, we tend to try and keep in touch with them, because a lot of people ask us to recommend another female trade. Sometimes they'll do like try and do an all-female team on a building product or something like that.
Yeah.
So do you have like a Facebook community or something? That's
There's a company called, it's a charity organisation that Hattie, who owns Stopcock Women Plumbers, set up, and it's called the Register of Female Tradeswomen, or the Tradeswomen Register.
Yeah.
It might even be the National Register of Tradeswomen. I think that's what it is. I should know because I've got one of the t-shirts and we're on it. But whenever we meet new female trades, we put them in touch with Hattie, because when people are looking specifically for a tradeswoman for whatever their reason, you can go on that register, and it's a bit like Check a Trade, but just for tradeswomen. So if they've got tradeswomen in their company, they can register with that for people to be able to find specifically tradeswomen.
Yeah. It must be something that also that you can, in a way, use a little bit to your advantage, because like in the trade industry in general, there's a problem with trust. Like generally, if you ask like anyone on the street, like they've got low trust. So, and I do think that typically someone might trust a woman in the house more. So like, do you think is it something that you can use, or is that a ridiculous statement in itself?
Well, the thing is, and like this is when tradesmen get quite offended, it's not about the fact that they don't trust a tradesman, and that it's more like a personal experience they might have had before. So quite often it's, you know, people who maybe have been victims of some sort of domestic abuse, or it might be that having a tradesman in the house has caused domestic abuse because of suspicions from partners in the past and things like that. So it might not be that it's that they don't want a tradesman, it's that if they're on their own in the house with another man, their partners have been abused in the past and stuff like that. And that wasn't something I'd thought of until it was Hattie that sort of like brought about that, I think from her own past experiences growing up. So it's not always that they don't trust a tradesman. It might be more, it could be a personal experience they've had with, you know, being on their own with a man, or it could be other reasons outside of that. But yeah, it is good to be able to recommend other female trades, because if people are wanting particularly a female tradesperson, they will specifically say, "Oh, could you tell me of a female plumber?" I mean, we'll try recommend based on location and availability. So if someone asks me to recommend a plumber, I won't just recommend any plumber. I'll recommend a plumber in their area, and I'll recommend a plumber that I think would be best suited for that job and be best available, rather than, because, you know, the worst thing is if I recommend someone and they're ringing around and they still can't find someone, because then it's a bit annoying for them, really. So I could give them a full list of women, but I know that they won't go because it's too far, or so I'll you know, I don't recommend solely based on gender unless somebody specifically asked for that.
Do you find that when you're recommending other trades, ultimately, if something doesn't go right, for instance, they don't answer the phone, they don't turn up for the appointment, or they do quote on the job and something goes wrong, do you think it can potentially come back and give a negative reflection on your business for making that recommendation?
Yeah, massively. So my partner's a plasterer, and obviously we damage plaster to run cables. They need a plasterer. We used to quote all into one and just send them straight out, and he would not turn up or not answer his phone, and I would look really bad. And so I just give them his number now and say, because it's like, you know, you treat your partner the best and worst, don't you? So if I give him a job, it comes at the bottom of the list, whether it's my own job. But if a customer rings him directly, they go to the top of the list. Yeah. So now we just give the number on. But I've had it, we do when we do core drilling. If you're with an extractor fans, we get a core driller in now. We used to do it ourselves, but it takes too long, and he's got like a big drill that comes and it takes about an hour. And we say to people, we subcontract in, and the last 3 jobs where we've had to use him, something's got damaged in the bathroom. Well, two of them, and one of them it was just generally saying, "Oh," and it's ended up that he's really lovely. He comes, he tidies up after himself. He's really quick, but things can get damaged, and it's like, I don't know if he's damaged it, if my staff's damaged it. I've had to pay for it. It might have even been damaged when they got there. I don't know. I don't do a full inventory on every job, and it can end up looking worse on you. And I think he had a bit of a grumble about us not pointing out exactly where I wanted this hose, and the customer was saying, "Oh, he's bad mouthing you," and like it becomes like there's somebody to play off against you then, and if something doesn't go right, it can become quite complicated and a bit awkward, really. So I always try and give them their number and say, "Look, I'll recommend them, and then you deal with them." A plumber did it to me recently. He's my favourite plumber. He always comes and does our jobs, but he didn't turn up to this job, and he was ringing the customer, but he didn't know they were a teacher, so they weren't answering. And they thought I was going with him to the job to let him in as some sort of bouncer or whatever to their house, I don't know. And I was like, what? Well, how would I come? I'm an electrician, not a key holder to your house. And it looked really bad because it looked like he just didn't turn up. And I was like, well, I don't own his diary at the same time as knowing he's a really good plumber and it always comes to us. If something else has come up and you've not been answering your phone, it can have a knock-on effect and make you look really unreliable. So I just always try and sort of let them deal with the trade themselves, and then you've done all you can.
Yeah. It's hard enough like managing your own like customer experience to then try and manage it. Like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, you can try recommend people, but sometimes, for whatever reason, people have their own sides of the story. For whatever reason, if it doesn't go well, it just can kind of leave you looking like you've done something wrong or you've recommended somebody who wasn't the best. And
have you had that experience, Tommy?
Yeah, plenty of times. A roofer springs to mind. To the point that we, at one point, prior to meeting this roofer, we would not quote on jobs that would have a flue going through the roof. Why? Because you don't put plumbers on a roof, you put a roofer on a roof. Simple. We then met a roofer that did a fairly decent job for 2 or 3 years, but then his standards started slipping, and it felt like every roof that we'd put him onto, 2 days after, 2 months after, 6 months after, something would not quite be right. And then, when you've recommended somebody and you've either paid them directly or you've not paid them directly, but you've recommended them and something starts going wrong on the job.
Yeah. And it's going your pockets.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
And I can remember one customer in particular, outright, she was fuming over something and her saying, I don't want him in my house. Now, this is a person that we recommended.
Yeah.
So to have our good customer say, I don't want him in my house, then what's that look like to our business? Yeah, so you do have to be careful about who you're recommending.
I think definitely when you're not employing them, because you've got a lot more sort of like a control and like a lot more about your staff that you employ, whereas when you're subcontracting someone in, like them turning up's out of your control most of the time, whereas your staff turning up's a lot more within your control. You can move their jobs around and stuff.
So in terms of like encouraging more women into the trade industry, like you do quite a lot. I know when we spoke before, you've talked about how you get sort of apprentices in and you become that almost that like nice space for someone to learn. But like, what more can the industry do in general? What more can people do to make it easier for women to access the trades?
I think it's like a range of things, really. Like there's quite a lot of different events where they do workshops and get people in to like have a go. I think it depends what sort of age you're looking at. So I'd say apprenticeship level under 19. I'd say probably the most easiest route in terms of cost and things, because you get paid to be an apprentice, so you're paid while you're learning. And also employers don't have to fork out. Once people get over 19, you have to pay to send them to college. If you put them on an apprenticeship, it's about £1,000, £900, something like that contribution. But then you've also got to pay them a lot more per hour. So if you take on a 30-year-old apprentice, you're going to be paying around £10 an hour upwards, plus paying £1,000 to send them to college. If it doesn't work out, obviously you've lost that. They also are learning from scratch, just like a 16-year-old apprentice would be. Whereas if you take on a 16-year-old apprentice, there's no outlay to send them to college, and you can pay a 16-year-old apprentice anything from it's about £4 or £5 an hour, and they can cope on that income, whereas because they're at home with their parents. Whereas expecting a 30-year-old, you can pay apprentices around £5 an hour for the first year, but trying to expect a 30-year-old apprentice to live on that when they've got bills and things, it's hard, because you want to pay everybody fairly, but then at the same time it takes you longer to do a job with an apprentice when they're brand new as what it does without them. And obviously the idea is that they make things a bit quicker. So I think it depends who you're trying to target to get into the industry, really. Like for younger apprentices, we do like careers events. I've been invited to loads of different career talks, like even to children at primary school, where we do where we did I've forgotten what they're called now. I think it's World of Work days and stuff like that, where careers organisations go out and ask you to do like a activity with the kids where they're thinking about them from a younger age doing a trade or becoming an electrician. And then for older people, I think it's definitely a lot more to do with cost and making it affordable for them to be able to get into industry, and making it affordable for employers to be able to get them into industry, really. Because I'd say we've had a better success rate with older apprentices sticking at the job, in terms of, if I've took someone on trial who's older, they've been more committed. Yeah, motivated and committed and genuine, whereas younger ones, like, they change their mind a lot more. They do it for a couple of days and then think, oh, I've had enough of this. And I do think the majority of women who retrain into trades do it in their mid-20s to mid-30s, I'd say, on average.
Yeah.
We've had experience of training up lots of people, and just I picked up on a little thing. We always called them trainees. The apprentices were, I mean, technically it was the same thing, but the apprentices were coming from college, going through the official route, where, yes, at the time, I think our first apprentice was like £2.40 an hour.
Yeah.
That's going back some years. Clearly, it's gone up now, and the most recent apprentice, because he was 21 years old, was on £8 something an hour. Okay. And I get this idea that, can you ask a grown person to survive on that money? But do you not find that often it's the case that they are retraining for a reason? They're coming out of whatever industry that they're in, and often they wanted to come to you just to get that extra experience, because often nobody else is going to give them that opportunity.
Yeah, I think I've got like adult people who want to retrain, who say, I'll come and do the work experience for free.
Yeah.
Like, I don't mind doing it for free, but that's sort of in their free time alongside a job.
Yeah.
We've got a lady who's interested in joining the team at the minute, who was local and can drive, and like, I think I could make a space for her, but she's getting paid like a reasonable rate to do a cleaning job with her sister's company, which would be more than she'd get as an electrical apprentice. And at first she was like, oh, I don't want to take a wage cut. And I was like, well, you know, our last two apprentices both were 23, and they both took wage cuts to come join our team. And what I try and do is increase their wage with their experience as quickly as I can.
Yeah.
So one of them, her wage doubled within, her hourly rate doubled within 6 months, and then it's gone up again in the last couple of months, because she's progressed so quickly, because she's 23, she's gone under a night course before she came to us. She's really capable. She's got previous experience building aircon panels. Like, her experience like came out rapidly, and you know, she's progressed so fast. And the other apprentice, again, you know, she's worked really hard and progressed really quickly, and she'd done a night course when she started with us. I do try to put them on formal apprenticeships, even if they are older, because that way they get the full qualifications at the cheapest way to do it. So I think if they are willing to take a pay cut, then it definitely shows commitment. But one of them lived at home, and the other's got a partner who's a builder, so he was on an all right wage. But if they're single, or maybe if they're a single mum, taking that wage cut's not always an option, rather than, you know, because I don't think that they'd get financial support. I don't know, maybe you can get financial support being on an apprentice wage with your rent and stuff like that. I'm not sure if the government will help with that.
It seems like, well, the first is schools is actually give good careers advice, give trades as well as other you know, businesses as an option, like educate people around that. But I think there's also the other part of so many people go into trades and then end up running their own business. It's like, how to run a business is like almost like a topic in itself. Like,
yeah,
I don't know how you sort of teach people that from an early stage like that. I think that's the challenge out there,
because you're not really taught at school about running a business.
It's always employed positions that they sort of talk to you about, isn't it?
Yeah. It's how to get a job.
Yeah,
you need to pass an exam to get a piece of paper that says that you're clever enough, or you're clever to this standard, and then interview techniques.
Yeah,
exactly.
CVs,
it's not
like that.
money management, or here's a CRM system. What's a CRM system for?
Yeah, well, even at university when I did law, we didn't have anything like CRM systems. And we used to do, because I wanted to be a solicitor, you had to do a year after your degree called a legal practice course. And even that was all paper-based. So we were like, acting like solicitors from, I don't know, the bloody 1800s or something. It was
so
ridiculous.
behind,
So when we came to work in a law firm, we were like, oh, you use a computer for this? Like, we didn't even use anything like that. So it was so realistic, and that was literally, and it's like, it's probably 10 grand to go do that course after your degree, and they can't put together something that makes it more realistic. Do you know, it's very, I think education is generally quite a traditional setup, whereas once you actually get out there into the workplace, you know, you won't actually work the way that you work at school for the majority of stuff like algebra, and people say I'm never going to use this, but I mean, being realistic, that my case management experience was from part-time jobs I had while I was at uni, not from uni at all. So it was like the legal knowledge, putting it into practice. You were never putting it into practice how you would put it into practice, because, like, for example, drafting forms and stuff, CRM systems just have it all. You just put the customer's name, it does it, you know, and it's good to have the knowledge, but, you know, being realistic, when you come to get a job, you don't have the knowledge about a CRM system, and that's what you actually need to know how to use.
Yeah. I think, like, careers advice at school is just so bad. Like, and there is that whole thing of, like, if you do all right in your exams, you're encouraged to then go to university. No one encourages you to go and start a trade, like go into trades, start.
Definitely not.
Like, whereas, that's totally viable route that could be. We talked about it on the sort of exit planning episode. Like, it could be very valuable as like way more than like going and get a job somewhere sat behind a desk.
Yeah, well, when I was at school, it was like around 2007, 2008, when the building trade took a bit of a plunge. But because I remember my friend's dad being a builder and struggling for work, and he ended up just doing their own extension for a bit of time. But it was literally like the boys who were in trouble who ended up getting trades. Like, they were the ones that always, like, they weren't like not intelligent. They were just the ones that were always not suited to sitting at a desk, so they were in trouble for not sitting still, or, you know, whatever. But they took all the manual subjects off the curriculum as I went into my GCSEs, because I wanted to do woodwork, and they took that off as an option, and they was like, you can do food technology if you want. And I had to make like pizzas with random toppings, and I wanted to make stuff out of wood, which was I found really frustrating, but there was nothing you could do. I don't know how they sort of style it now, and I presume different schools get their own choices, but they definitely take away as much manual stuff. Like, when my partner, he's only 5 years older than me, when he was at school, the stuff they used to do compared to what I did at school, and then what his dad would do at school, like, they would be making all sorts of stuff out of wood and metal, and you know, whereas we were like slowly taken away from it, and, you know, now I don't even know if they do woodwork at all, really. But those are like key skills what tradespeople need, using tools, you know.
So when you went into trades, did you have any worries about that, concerns that sort of maybe might have prevented you doing it?
So not really. I like I say, because I'm quite confident, and my partner, he's a plasterer, and he was really like encouraging and enthusiastic. I didn't worry about not having work or anything. The first time it really hit me, because I left my legal job and I went working with him, and I went working with another electrician. But I always knew, and I was always quite clear about the fact that I wanted to do my own jobs, like, as soon as I was experienced enough and qualified enough to do that. It kind of hit me when I stopped going plastering with Ola, and I was looking at doing my own work rather than working with Steve all the time, and I didn't have any other work or source of work, and I had to kind of think, right, okay, where do I get work from now? And that's when I was like, oh no, what do I do? And I ended up getting a Facebook page set up and going to some networking, and that's when I rebranded as a female electrician, and ever since then I've been so busy. But you know, I think when you there's obviously first retraining, and I think getting somewhere that'll give you the experience is the difficult bit with that. And then obviously once you're actually going to set up on your own, getting the work starting to come in. So there's both things are really difficult things to do. Obviously I was really lucky that people responded so well to my female electrician brand. And I was lucky that we had like a family friend who was happy to take me on work experience, and we had our own property that we were doing. So I got a lot of experience doing our own houses and renovating them, which a lot of people who even come to us for experience, they don't have any experience, but they've gone and done all the courses, and then they're not, like, they've never picked up a drill. Or, you know, I had one lady who'd done an electronics degree, a domestic installer course, and her level 2 on an evening, and she came on the first day with a brand new dual drill set and didn't know how to put the drill bit in the drill. And I was like, I see, you don't know until you know, so I showed how to do it. But it really struck me then how much more experience I'd managed to get doing our own properties from scratch and seeing all the different trades come in.
Yeah.
To somebody who's gone and done all them courses in a tiny little workshop and actually doesn't know what a joiner even is. So when they come in, what stage they're relevant, what they need to do with their installation to make sure it'll match up to what the joiner is going to do, what the plasterer is going to do. So I think getting experience is definitely the hardest thing.
Can I just pull back, because I think it's interesting to pull this in with the other episodes that we've recorded. But when you first started and it's like, right, I'm going to set up my own business, I need the phone to ring. Yeah. And you mentioned there that you rebranded and went onto social media. At the moment, is social media and the word of mouth that comes off the social media, is that your main driver, your main channel for work?
Yeah, we get a lot of work through recommendations and through Facebook and a bit off other social medias. We are now on Checkertrade as well and Yale.com, and we get quite a bit of work off that too. But a lot of it was sort of recommendations from other customers once you've been out to one. I got my first few jobs. I got 5 jobs at the first networking group I went to, but that was the most success I'd say I've had in networking. And then I got quite a few jobs just from when people put, please can someone recommend an electrician for this?
Yeah.
Commenting on them and saying I can help and sending them a message. I was quite surprised how well responded that was.
This is pretty interesting because in the plumbing and heating side of things, a lot of heating engineers would say that social media does not work for heating engineers. Yeah, they do. And so when you've said it there, like the pennies dropped for me, and I thought, well, yeah. Course, I've been saying for a long time, of course it will. You just need to do something different. Stop taking pictures of pipe work.
People want everyone to come to them, I think. Like, people are fed up of ringing 20 different electricians trying to get someone to do a job. If they put a comment on social media and they get inundated with messages from electricians who'll come and do the job, I think that's what people generally want. So I don't message these people directly because I don't have time to do that. But when I first set up, that's what we did, and that really worked. But now people are recommenders. I personally think if somebody else has recommended me, then that's how I want a customer to find me, not myself saying use me, because then they can see somebody else has recommended me.
Yeah.
But I do think customers generally just want an inbox full of messages from people willing to do the job, because it saves them time.
I don't know. I think they want that recommendation, like from someone they trust more than anything else.
I think it definitely depends on the person, the individual, but I have had a lot of success from messaging people and saying, oh, I've seen your post. When I first started, I would have messaged people saying, I've seen your post, this is what I do. Like, now if someone tags me in something, I put a comment, like a pre-made comment that I've already got that says, please take a look at our Facebook page that's got plenty of 5-star recommendations. And then they message the page. I got to the point where my phone was ringing so much I couldn't get on with my job, because I'd go through my phone at the end of the day and count my missed calls and be like, is it over 20 today? Or people that had to ring back, because it was, so we've got a full-time administrator now who does that. But I think it depends on the type of person. But my sister's been trying to get someone to do her garden for months, and she every time she tries, she'll be like, I've rang 5 different people, nobody's turned up to quote me. And we get quite a lot of people saying nobody's turned up to quote me. So I think it depends. If someone's struggled to get people before and someone pops in their inbox willing to do it, it's sort of an easy option.
Yeah, that's true.
You've mentioned social a few times there, and you've mentioned Facebook. Are there any platforms that work particularly well for you, and like what are the main ones that you use?
The main one we've got work from is definitely Facebook, because it's got that recommendation feature on it. And we've got a few things off Instagram, LinkedIn a couple of times, but I'm rubbish with LinkedIn. I always forget about it. But I think that's because it's more people looking for jobs. You don't want to pop up your staff on there, do you?
Oh, yeah, it's interesting.
Oh,
hello. Yeah, I mean, like, from what I've seen, like, your company, I assume it's not you, but is putting out like posts pretty much daily on LinkedIn. And like, we were chatting about this yesterday, that we think LinkedIn's a huge opportunity because you've got loads of potential customers there and not much competition, because most trades businesses aren't doing much on LinkedIn. But from your experience, you've sort of not got much from that yet. Or...
I think we get a lot of recommendations through Facebook, because that's where people tend to go.
Yeah, that's where they ask.
But LinkedIn, we've got a customer through LinkedIn who we go to every single Tuesday, and it's like a really good opportunity, because it's a steel factory, and they basically store and sell steel, cut it up, cut into shapes, So they've got loads of overhead cranes. They've got a massive shot blasting machine that's got like big panels. And Bryony, one of our girls, goes there every day, every Tuesday or every Thursday now it is, for a day a week, and that's regular income for us. And that come through LinkedIn. But I think that's because it's quite a professional connection, whereas regular sort of. But I think it depends on what you're looking. But the facilities manager at that company said to me, you need to do more on LinkedIn not that long ago. But it's not me who does all them posts. It's an app called Recur Posts that you fill a library and it uses the library up and then starts back at the beginning again, and you just tell it how regularly you want it to post. So I don't do any social media posting apart from the odd, look at this cool picture I've taken this morning of the girls in York in a van. Can you guess where they are? Something like that.
That's a really interesting point about LinkedIn for like commercial jobs. Like that's a bit of a no-brainer in terms of like you've got all of these businesses on there, and like all of those businesses, they're going to require like trades at some point. So it's like it does feel like a good place to go to, especially if you're looking to get into the commercial area.
Yeah, definitely. Like a facilities manager is going to be probably the best shout. It's going to be through LinkedIn or networking. But I've not. They came to us through chance. They said, "Oh, we need an electrician to do 2 days a week," and I was like, "Tell them hourly rate. If they want us to go see them. If they don't, they don't." And he was like, "Oh yeah, come up." So I went up and we went through everything, and it was like a totally different type of thing to what we normally do. I said, I rewire houses. I put light fittings up, for nice private customers who want a socket changed into brush steel. I've never worked on a shop blasting machine or an overhead crane before. And they were like, "But we just need someone, please." And they trained me up on it for about 12 months. And then one of our girls who, like I said, she's progressed really quickly. She's worked on panel building before. She's taken over that role now, and she goes every Thursday. But that was such like an unusual client to get. And I think facilities managers generally is definitely like LinkedIn's probably the best shout, because you can search for facilities
you can
managers.
Find them.
So if you were willing to sort of put the time into doing that, but because it's not like the regular sort of type of work we do, although it is such a good customer to have, because also quite a few of the people in our offices have then used us for private work, and sometimes they need call outs, which we do a lot of. But we are quite busy as well, so if we weren't busy, then maybe that'd be something I'd think, right, well, I could spend a bit of time on LinkedIn, but like you never know what's the best way to spend your time.
I think like the general theme of like what we said today and what we said yesterday is like when you start a business, you just get those leads in whatever way you can, whether that's like just outbound calling people, whether that's just getting on Check Trade, rate people, whatever, and then develop like the sources of people coming to you, and then use those other sources to supplement what you've got. That seems
YouTube.
To be what...
That's what I've been thinking for the last 10 minutes. We recorded an episode with Mike, which I'm sure you'll be able to drop the link down below. I think that really work for you is to like do more video stuff and get that.
My sister's always saying you need to do YouTube stuff, but I've never really got into YouTube or TikTok or like that. But like loads of people are doing. There's an electrician in London. I forgot what he's called, Tom, but I've forgotten what he calls his company. But he literally films all their installs and stuff, and he spends more time now filming than he does actually installing. But like it's got him loads of work through that, because people like they see him on there and they're like they want him to go do their job. But I can see. Maybe I don't like filming myself. Don't hear my own voice. Maybe that's why I don't do that.
I mean, you should watch back the one. We were chatting about this yesterday, because one of Mike's big pieces of advice is all those questions that you're asked like all the time. Take those, create like short like video content that you can put on YouTube. That's where people search for like how to do something, and be the person there who's answering their question. And like they might be able to sort it out at that point, or they might see it and then there's someone that they trust there, you built some trust, and they go, right, can you come do this for me, because I can't do this. Or like they'll come back to you next time when they've got something more complicated, because they're like, oh, that guy on, or that woman on YouTube.
That's like building a brand, isn't it, so people know who you are, I suppose. But
and those videos become reusable as well. It's not just like for like people finding you on YouTube. You can embed them into like your messaging, like when you're messaging new customers, or you can put them out on your socials as social content. Like, so they've got so many uses. I think like to me, like video content seems like a bit of a no-brainer.
So you mentioned some of the like networking you've done. Are there any like networks that you recommend, like tradeswomen or people wanting to get into the trades should be a part of?
So there's quite a few different groups on Facebook where there's, I think it's called Female Electricians UK, and there's one called Open Circuit as well, and they've both got everything from entry level people who are wanting to get into the trade right through to you know, business owners like myself, and they're really good at posting upcoming jobs, things like that in there. I think like the tradeswomen register that I said about before, they've got quite a lot of companies that have got tradeswomen, so it's definitely good to have a look on there if you find a local company. I think because other tradeswomen have known how the struggle can be, like they're quite often trying to help and give advice to other tradesmen getting into the industry. But it's best just to search, because the NICIC did a scheme for a bursary of £500 to help women get into industry, stuff like that. If you look it up, you know, Google and tradesmen, things like that, there's quite a few different schemes and things out there that are solely based to support tradeswomen getting into industry. Women and Manual Trades in Birmingham, that's another one if you're local to them. They're always posting about different jobs and opportunities, and they do quite a lot of workshops and things like that as well.
Yeah. Someone's dropped into the notes, I think, just because they like the name Chicks with Bricks. Have you come across that one?
No, I've not heard of them before. Where are they based?
I've
You know?
no idea.
I'll have a look. There's quite a few different things. Once you start looking, like, you'd be surprised how much you can actually find. People always think that I know every other tradeswoman, and I do know quite a lot of them. Like I say, even with that female plaster I didn't know about, you know, there's always more, and it's like, even like local to us, I'll get an email from somebody who is a qualified electrician who lives 10 minutes away from me, and I never even knew she existed, and I'm always really surprised that there's another one. Like, oh yeah, another one. So yeah, no, there's always more stuff out there.
Is there anyone that's particularly inspired you? Like,
so definitely Hattie from Stop Cox Women Plumbers. So Hattie has put so much of her life into helping other tradeswomen. Like, she's got so many female plumbers qualified by helping them get their MVQ and doing their gas training with them and stuff. She's so selfless. Like, if she just went out to work, charged an hourly rate and did her own jobs, she always says to me how much more rich she would have been than spending all the time that she spent training other tradeswomen. She does like programs to get tradeswomen on board when they're training and things like that. And she set up the National Register of Tradeswomen, and she's just got so much like charitable work at heart. And when I first heard about her, it was somebody at a press event in London that told me about her, who was working for one of their trades magazines. So I presumed she lived in London, and she actually lives in Todmorden, which is like 20 minutes from my house. And so I've met her, and she's become one of my good friends, and I look up to her and what she does so much. Her values are so admirable, and she's just so lovely as well.
Did she come into trades like later on, or did she go straight into trade?
She retrained. She was a teacher to begin with, and she retrained as a plumber. She moved up from London, and again, she really struggled to get experience taken seriously. And she did it, I'd say, you know, a good few years before me, because she's older than me, but also when it was even harder and it wasn't heard of at all. Just like, she's really strived throughout her career, and like I say, she's become such like a she's a bit like a mum in industry, I'd say, to a lot of female trades. They put on an event every year as well for female plumbers, and yeah, she's definitely somebody to look up to for a lot of tradeswomen.
Because ultimately, like,
I've seen her name somewhere in one of the magazines, so you know, she's
just
putting
so
herself out
kind
there
as well.
Yeah. I think ultimately, like, having more people like that to look up to that you can see who's been really successful in the industry, that's going to do more to encourage more people in.
Yeah, definitely. She looks a little bit like my mum and my mum's auntie, and she reminds me of them, and she's just so lovely. But just because she helps so many people, I think like she's put that in front of making money, in front of like, her success hasn't been really rich. It's been, I'm not saying that she's not really rich, but I don't know, but it's been, you know, helping others, and I just think that's something that's so, it's quite rare to see, you know, people that'll put that first rather than just earning loads.
Well, thanks very much, Cathy, Tommy, Luke, for joining us. That's it for this episode. I hope you found the information we shared useful. If you'd like any support on the topics covered, leave a comment below the video or head over to the Payaka website, and we'd be happy to help. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed the conversation, please support the channel by subscribing and liking the video.